Hey chickens, I'm back at it again, testing the Tesla SpaceX launch. This time with more theories and video evidence supporting and going against the theory. So, if you didn't see my last video, go ahead, check it out. I go into some more theories that I'm not going to go into this video. And we'll start with this footage. So this is from a movie that came out in 1981 called Heavy Metal. It doesn't really prove or disprove the theory itself, but it does show where Elon Musk might have got his idea from. Next up, you guys pointed out two glitches that came out from the actual footage. So you're now looking at part of the rocket booster, and you're going to see something very weird happening with a foil fabric around the rocket booster on your right hand side in a minute. It does that kind of weird ruffly thing. I don't know if you saw that. It's going to do it again in a minute. And there we have it again. And then the feed got cut. So to me, it seems like there's some kind of change in pressure inside that little space that they've created there. Another explanation could be that something hit it. Or a third explanation could be that the feed isn't that consistent. This is one I'm finding very hard to explain. I'm not a rocket scientist, so if you are a rocket scientist or you have a theory as to why this might be happening, please let me know in the comments below. Of course, if you believe in the conspiracy, you're probably thinking that somebody walked in or something happened in the studio. But for now, I'm going to leave this piece of evidence as undetermined. Another thing that happened is this weird lens flare effect. Now to me, that looks as if something reflected into the lens and it overexposed the camera for a second. We also see this glitch in the feed in which we see what some people have pointed out looks like a studio. I can tell you that that's not actually the studio, that is the cargo bay of the rocket. Here are some supporting images showing you the bay itself. So why would the feed suddenly cut back to an earlier point of time when the car was in the cargo hold? That seems very, very weird to me. So last time I tested if the Earth was CGI by looking at various different CGI Earths against real ones. Today I'm going to test whether the car was CGI. So again, I'm going to show you two shots. One's real, one's not. You've got to guess which one's real and which one's not. So I'm hoping you guys guess this one easily. So you've probably guessed already that this one is the real footage, and you can tell because of the physics of the footage itself. And I think that's one reason why people get confused, is because the physics that we see in space isn't the same kind of world that we're used to on Earth. But that aside, the reflections and the texturing on the car look very computer generated. But that's one thing computers have gotten very good at, so again, it's very hard to tell. Another theory I hear people asking is that in the vacuum of space, why wouldn't the pressure difference from the air inside the tyres cause them to pop? Well, the space shuttle has wheels and tyres. Without them, it can't land. So I'm going to get into some very sciencey technical stuff for you right now. So atmospheric pressure at sea level is about 14 psi. That's 14 pounds per square inch. So car tyres are normally inflated to about 36 pounds per square inch at about 2.5 atmospheres. Going into space would increase this to 3.5 atmospheres. The tyres on the space shuttle are inflated to 340 pounds per square inch. So adding 14.7 pounds per square inch from going from the atmosphere to the vacuum isn't going to make that much of a difference. Another way of explaining it is in bars. So ambient pressure at sea level is 1 bar, which is around roughly 15 pounds per square inch. So if a tyre pressure gauge reads 2 bars, that's 30 pounds per square inch because it's double 15. So there's actually 3 bars of air inside the tyres acting against the 1 bar of pressure from the outside. So if you fill the pressure inside with only 1 bar, then the vacuum of space would create the same ratio once you get into space. So you use some thick insulated soft rubber and don't fill them as much essentially. So now I bet you're wondering why in the friction of the atmosphere of the Earth as it goes through the atmosphere, why doesn't the heat from all that energy make the rubber tyres melt and even parts of the car melt? Well, the car is contained inside the payload cone at the top of the rocket. After the rocket is successful out of the atmosphere, the covering is ejected so the spacecraft can operate on its own orbit. Here's some footage of the actual launch itself. So another question you guys have been asking is, why doesn't the car therefore either freeze in the coldness of space or burn up in the sun? Well, in solar winds the temperature can get up to thousands of degrees, whereas in the cosmic background temperature can be minus 455 degrees Fahrenheit. So it really depends whether you're in the sun or the shade as to how hot it gets. The atmosphere is so thin that there isn't any gas to actually warm anything up, so you radiate all your heat pretty quickly. But nonetheless, in the sun you can reach temperatures of up to 260 degrees Celsius, well, as in the shade you can get down to temperatures of over minus 100 degrees Celsius. Astronauts actually wrap metal objects in various coatings and blankets before they handle them in order to protect themselves. So you'd expect the plastic and rubber to burn when it's in the sun. My guess is that it's either some kind of NASA specially produced polymers and rubbers. It's not plastic and metal at all, it's some kind of different material. Or that the car is so good at radiating because it's a car. So now we've looked at some of the car theories, now let's look at some of the theories about the footage of the Earth. Do you believe in a flat Earth? Well, now you can own this Starman shirt, link in the description. So the first theory is that the Earth clouds aren't moving. So I'm going to take a look at some similar real footage of the Earth and just to see if the clouds seem to move at the same kind of rate. And the answer is that they don't look like they're moving because they're relatively moving really slow. I'm sure if you sped up the footage and made some kind of time lapse, you'd see the formation of the atmosphere. Another person pointed out that you don't see the satellites around the Earth. Again, the reason is because they're relatively very, very small. In the same way, you don't see any aircraft around the Earth because they're relatively tiny. So another one of the theories debunking the conspiracy is that the weather on the Earth matches the weather in real life. And of course you couldn't make a CGI image of Earth if you had to predict the weather in real life. So I thought I'd check a satellite image of the weather in real life just to see if I can match it to a landmark so I can try and tell whether the weather was the same. Now first of all, I would like to say that it is particularly hard to find satellite images of cloud formations, particularly in the past. But I did manage to find this weather report, which is from Spain and Europe. And we mainly see the southern hemisphere in the videoed footage of the Earth from this car footage. But there are some distinctive cloud formations that you can match up with the weather report and the footage we're seeing. The first is the thin slither of cloud in the Atlantic Ocean, and the second is the body of cloud over parts of Europe and Africa. And you can clearly see through the windscreen and the picture of Earth, there's a slither of cloud to the left and there's a body of cloud to the right. Now these may have moved a bit because the time between the weather report and the footage might be slightly different, but you can see that the weather is somewhat similar. In this footage you can even see flashes of lightning behind the car. Now cloud formations you can somewhat predict, but lightning flashes are somewhat harder to predict. So all of this to me proves that the car and the Earth are definitely real. Some people have pointed out that the Earth seems to zoom out a bit weirdly. I haven't seen any evidence of that. And you've also pointed out that the clouds seem to cut off. Again, I haven't seen any evidence of that. But if you've got any more theories of your own, any more observations or anything else, let me know in the comments below and hit that subscribe button and get me past 1,000 subs.